Evening all, back at you, doing a little bit of streaming, and I was on a little earlier, and let me just get this chat out so I can see what's going on here. So earlier on I was fiddling around with the cars and sporting the X-Ray, of course, why wouldn't you? I have no agenda with my car racing. The only thing that I do run is contact tyres. That's the only thing that I've signed up to. Did run Ulti tyres, but now running contact tyres. So earlier I got the old motor out of the Schumacher E4. Gave it a clean, changed the numbers, and if you weren't with us, you'll be able to see these numbers down here on the bottom of the screen here. So before the clean, getting 1424 RPM. After the clean, I got 14389. KV 3843 before, then I got 3878 afterwards. Timing bumped down 0.4 just by simply replacing the bolts in the same spot there. Got 0.7 in both for the deviation, and then asymmetry went from 0.5 down to 0.4. So we got 4 out of the 5 details improved, which I think is a bit of a success. Can't knock at that. Nice to have a bit of improvement on the old motor Rooney. So I've got my clean that off the board. I'm going to comes off slowly but surely. I've got a few other motors that I'm just going to strip and clean. Get the rotor tester out, have a fluff around on there. Any questions as I'm going through, feel free to jump in. If you're wondering why I'm streaming, got bugger all else to do, so why not? Why not have a bit of RC happiness? So there he is. There are my 2 cars, all set up exactly the same with the electrics. I'm just going to run through with the X-Ray and whip this motor out and just see what's going on with that. Got my Zen Racing soldering station. Yep, the old iCharger firing up. I've been doing a bit of work with the old lipos today, keeping on top of those, making sure that they're not falling asleep. So I'm just going to unsolder the motor, got my usual solder suction tool out. Just a little bit of solder. If you're out there and you've got any questions as I'm going along, feel free to jump on in. When you put a bit of solder on, even though you're taking it off, the flux in the solder goes around the joint and therefore makes it easier for the joint to free up instead of having to heat the wire and the joint up for too long. There we go. Out. There we go. That. Let's bring the switching off. Bring my power supply in for the motorizer. Fires up. Over in. And just going over the points. Make sure none of them are touching, falling off. There we go. That should work. And fire up the band. See what that delivers. So this one's slightly better than the one before. 14477 3903. So that's RPM. That's kV. I've got timing of 42.5. Got deviation of 0.1. It's not bad, is it? And I've got an asymmetry of 0.2. Yeah, pretty pleased with those numbers. This came about by someone asking me, do I think that the motors get any worse when they're sitting at home? Now I know that's been cleaned, that one, so I'm not going to do too much with that one. That was already pretty clean. Oh, what the hell? Let's take it apart. Let's do it. Let's do it. So if you're just tuning in, just taking out one of the motors of my 12 scale car, chucked it on the motorizer. There's some solder by the looks of things. We'll do a bit of, you see that there? I've never seen that before. A bit of solder has run down the contact and actually gone into the can there. Wow. So if you put too much solder here, runs down, gets too hot, and actually ended up into the can there. Unfortunately, it's delivered some pretty phenomenal figures, which is a bit of a nightmare, because it makes you wonder, well, should I be messing around with that? But we'll get rid of it. I don't think it's going to be better for it. It looks like. Yeah, don't like that at all. Interesting. Glad I took it apart now. I'm just going to give it a good brush. Get rid of all the tyre dust that's in there. It's everywhere, that tyre dust. Hideous stuff. Hideous. Alrighty, let's get that solder iron fired back up. Get rid of that excess solder. Yeah, don't like that. So those of you who just joined me, just taken this motor apart and found some solder that's run down that contact point there, which will come out the other end. Maybe. So one of the tools that I use a lot is this suction tool. Push it in, click it, it sucks the solder out. So make sure I do this quickly and then not dripping down into the Hey Lee, how you doing, pal? Welcome along. That has got, it feels like a lot of solder in it. Just to show you what comes out of it. Really, really useful bit of kit. I'll show that to the side. Continue on with this. One of the good features with this soldering iron is that when it's sitting on the side, it just goes to sleep. So what had happened where I'd been soldering, because I hadn't used this too much, the solder had actually leaked down the contact point. It leaked down the contact point and actually popped itself out the other end here, and actually shaped itself around the end of this rotor. And that rotor, the numbers that I've just taken, produced 0.1 deviation, 0.18, 0.2 asymmetry. So the numbers were really bloody good. And you watch, it'll be worse for it now. Always the way. Well, not always the way. Hopefully it's not worse for it. But all I'm doing is just heating up the contact point, popping the plunger, and it's just sucking out excess solder. And then that way you've got a nice clean contact, and it looks like how the motor comes out of the factory. Nice clean contact points in there. Good to solder onto. Just going to do still a little bit more. Good. That's that done. Dar Will. Hi Stu, I've recently returned to RC and looking to get a new handset but can't pick between the Futaba PXR or the Sanwa M17. Well, being brutally honest with you, Dar Will, there is no contest there. I've had I've had Futaba, and the reason why I don't know if you were back in the day when Futaba was all the craze. When I came back into racing, everyone, well, I just went straight to Futaba, so I bought a Futaba radio. Having had a Futaba, having had a KO, and having had a Sanwa as well, Sanwa are just another level. The product, the quality of the product is fantastic. Some would say it looks a little bit plasticky. I've got my Sanwa handset. Oh, it's in the other room. If you want me to get it, just let me know and I will get it. The quality is just fantastic. The servos are second to none. I've got Sanwa servos, the SXR servos in my 12 scale cars, and I've got them in my buggies. I do a bit of buggy racing as well. If you've checked out the videos on the channel, I would 100% recommend getting the Sanwa over the Futaba. Yeah, they're just another level. Being brutally honest, so I don't think I've sat on the fence on that one. If you've got any other questions about the handset, why I think it's good, or if you've got any thoughts, feel free to ask away. That's what I'm here for. Just chewing the cud, enjoying the hobby, and hopefully making some friends. So that's is looking a little bit nicer now. Got rid of all the gunk, that extra solder that wasn't needed. Lovely. Lovely. There we go. So I can't get it perfectly in focus. But hopefully you can see. I can do a bit better. Great. So happy with that. Just want to make sure I get rid of. Always pop that to the side because that's nice and clean bit now. I'm just going to be very careful with just cleaning this sensor board. Give it a brush. So these are the sensors. 1, 2, 3, and they've got little contact points, and you can actually unsolder these and actually move them around to improve the orientation of the sensor board. It's not something that I've done, but I definitely want to have a little fiddle around with that and play with it to see whether I could make a bad sensor board into a better sensor board. That would be my agenda. Let's just have a little look what's going on in the background there. I'm quite nervous about putting this back together and seeing that the numbers have got dramatically worse. Because they're, I don't think I've ever seen numbers like that, 0.1 and 0.2 before. So we'll see. Always make sure you put the shims back in the right way. Just going to give that a little bit more of a brush. So Darwin says, exactly, mate, I'm 43 now, so Futaba was the one to go for. I've heard a few people say Sanwa gives you more feel, but thanks for the advice, mate. I'm going to go for the Sanwa. Good on you, pal. And if you've got any questions about the Sanwa, always feel free to drop me a message. I'm always happy to help out and guide where I can, and if I don't know the answer, I'll point you in the direction of someone that knows. Yeah, I've never used a blower, Lee. A, I haven't got one, and B, you know, it's not damp, so a brush is as good as anything. But you're right, a blower would do as well, wouldn't it? It's quite therapeutic, giving it a bit of a brush lead. Good. Very well. Like all good workbenches, nothing's where you want it to be. But let me tell you, everyone, white workbench is the way forwards. You don't lose anything on it, which is marvellous. Lovely stuff. Put that back in. Always remember when you've taken your shims out, make sure that they go back in the same order. Important part. And actually, when you get a motor, playing with the shimming will actually help its performance as well, if it's not been shimmed properly. I don't think there's any particular formula to shimming. I just think you just need to get out there and have a bit of a play with it and get the spot that works best for the motor. Perfect. Put that back on. The face of disappointment when this motor suddenly delivers far worse numbers. What's your betting, everyone? Is it going to be better or is it going to be worse? Talk to me. What's your gut feeling? If I'd have asked you before and you hadn't seen those numbers, you'd have said, oh, it's definitely got to be better. I know you, Palmer, you would have definitely said it would have been better. Oh, it'll definitely be better. Alrighty. Let's get the motorizer plug back in. Let's wash away any surplus solder filings. That's the last thing we want in the old motor. There we go. Alright. I'm nervous, boys, I'm nervous. I've got a couple of other motors that I'm going to just fire up. So Darwin says it will be okay to send you an email coming back to the hobby after 25 years. The way that has changed and lots of questions. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, happily answer anything that I can help you with. Fire me an email. Have you got my email address? theonroadpodcast@gmail.com. Fire it over. No problem at all, sir. What 12 scale car have you got? What did you go for? You bought one yet? Or have you just gone GT12? Or are you in a different class? Alright. So, first up, the numbers. Put that in view. I'm going to hide it from you. Is 14,472. So we've only lost 5 in RPM. 3896. We lost 7 in RPM, 7 in kV. It was 42.5. it's now 42.4 degrees of timing. No, here we go, Shu. And then, so we've now got deviation of 0.1, still 0.1. This is the one that I'm worried about, the asymmetry. Oh, no, it's gone to 0.4. Fucking hell, it's shit. It really isn't shit, everyone. Now, at the Worlds, someone handed me a motor that's a good driver, and I didn't have the heart to tell him, you don't want to be putting that in your car. They vary so much. I've got a couple of other... We've got a couple of other motors here. A couple of other... If you think point 0.1 and 0.4 is a fail, then you must have much better motors than me. So that was the one I just tested. Got a couple of others here as well. So Daniel Kearney, he says, have you ever heard of the end bell screw tension affecting the timing, Stu? Never heard of it, but it does make sense because I've just replaced the end bell back on exactly the same, and it's changed 0.1 of a degree. So I'd guess that, you know, how much you tighten it will have a small variance. I don't think it'll be as much as a degree. But if the motor's any good, you can see that 0.1, I'd potentially lost those few numbers of RPM and KV because of that 0.1. I'd hate to think that that 0.1 has caused 0.2 of deviation, or else we'll all be worrying about how tightening up our motors affect the quality of them. So here's a couple of motors I've got here. So let's whack those on as well. So Darrell says, I'm actually going off-road to start as my youngest son has got the bug, so it's fantastic to share the hobby with him. But we've gone for the X-Ray XB2, XB4 buggies and XB8E when it's released. Oh, fantastic! Yeah, so I had the XB2 X-Ray before I moved over to Yokomo, and X-Ray make quality kit. What you'll find is not so much in 12 scale, but the X-Ray have got a bit of a stigma in buggy from all of the other brands, of course, but they're a great product. The bit that I didn't like about the X-Ray scene for buggies when I was trying to get setups, it was like trying to find rocking horse shit, you know. You just couldn't get one. The UK guy I'd message him and just not very good support. Whereas if I message Alex Hagberg, or if anyone messages Alex Hagberg, he comes back really, really quick. And it's been the same with my Yokomo experience as well. When I've messaged anyone in the Yokomo camp, they've always come back really quickly. So I think buggy's a bit different with that. So let's try this. Motor. Fire up the band. So the next motor, keep you in suspense. So this is motor 1. Motor 1. Let's go for motor 2. So this has got 14,251 as RPM, 3844 as KV. Timing is 47.1 on the can, and the deviation is 0.2 degrees. Happy about that. and then the asymmetry is 0.1. Whew, what a motor. That, my friends, is a piece of art. Lovely. And then we've got motor number 3. Let's put that on. A. B. And C. Give it another go. Oh, sounds hideous. But let's see. Let's see. Wow. So now motor number 3 is 14,564. That's RPM. KV is 3921. So we've not only got a good KV, the best KV there, the best RPM there. Timing is at 44.9. The deviation is 0.4. And the asymmetry is 0.1. So, that, my friends, is what you call a half-decent batch of motors, all fueled and powered by Trinity. Now, I've got to let you into a bit of a secret. I don't just buy one motor, I buy quite a few. And one of the bits of kit that I use is this little thing here. It's called a rotor tester. And if you've seen one of my videos, I've talked you through how this rotor tester gives me the strength of the rotor. And listen, I'm certainly not saying that I know it all on the motor front, but this little box here, which I will show you how it works. You're going to have to give me a second here, just to, a little bit messy in the old bloody workshop here. It's really not very good. Really not very good. Anyone got any questions so far? Anyone got any questions? I'm just rabbiting along, having a bit of fun. Let's just move that out of the way. This is when you're messing around with motors. This is really important to have a nice. It's only a you know, a 3D printed box. Fella in America built it for me. He sells them, I believe, and you're able to adjust the input voltage. So I can adjust it to a 1 cell input voltage, so it just makes it consistent. So the Tippy Cart, welcome back, nice to see you. I'm running on a low grip asphalt outdoors, and I'm using the Ulti Z soft rears with other tyres. What other tyres are comparable to those wheels? Well, I've actually run the Ulti Z soft. I would go, you know, I don't really know what tyres you run. You're running in, I assume you're running in the US, are you? The Tippy Cart? Answer that question first for me, and then maybe we can help you out with the tyre that's going to give you the best performance. Got my discharge bank, which gets hotter than the surface of the sun. Just want to give a shout out to Zen Racing. They are one of the sponsors of the On-Road podcast LMP race series. They distribute Trinity Motors, and they also distribute this really good soldering iron. If you haven't got a soldering iron, you want to get yourself involved in one of these. These are really top drawer. Adjustable temp, switch on the back. It's really very simple. Lovely LED telling you. I'll show that to you when I fire it back up. So okay, so outside. So listen, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I haven't done any outdoor. I haven't done any outdoor racing with 12 scale. Now, the Z Soft is a super soft tire. So if you've got if you can get hold of contacts out there, I would have thought some form of A-foam rear, but I would say, you know, the Bomber Gold tire that Contact do would be a good tire. I can find out for you. I can speak to Andy Murray. He is a Contact tire driver as well. But what I'll do is, if you drop me an email, the Tibicar, at theonroadpodcast@gmail.com, theonroadpodcast@gmail.com, drop me an email, and I'll email you back with the info of a comparable tyre to the Ulti Z Soft. That won't be a problem at all, my friend. Sorry, I can't give you a definitive answer on that one, but I will give you. In JFT, Lee Palmer is on. Lee Palmer, what is a Ulti Z Soft comparable tyre? Lee Palmer is part of Zen Racing. He will have an idea on that, and hopefully he will get back to me. In fact, where is my telephone? I'm going to text Dave Spashit for you as we are speaking now. Let's ask Dave. JFT for outdoor. I've asked him. He'll come back to me. Absolutely no problem there. If I don't know the answer, I definitely know someone who will know the answer. So, what was I going to do? Oh yeah, I was going to do the rotor tester, wasn't I? That's it. Let's get the rotor tester out. And let me show you what that does. A natty bit of tech. Where's the cable gone? Oh. That's the trouble when you're talking and moving things around. 1 minute you're texting, 1 minute you're talking. There we go. There she is. There's the cable. Sorry, folks. Plugs inside. Hey, look at that. Phantom Racing. Get in. Now, I need to go and get a rotor. When are you doing the video on the servo programming with the Sanwa MC so I can test it? Thanks. The video on the Sanwa M17, I'm going to actually get Alex Hagberg to do that for you because I don't have an M17 handset, but I will get Alex to do that for you because that's something that a lot of people have asked me about. It's the most complex thing ever for the Sanwa ZZ handset, and I haven't got a Samurai M17, so I can't help you on that, but I will get Alex to do that. So here is the rotor, and what you are supposed to do is find the center of the rotor, where it, if you can see on the right hand side here, when this goes down to 0, or when one of the poles goes down to 0, you've effectively found the center point of the rotor. Then what you do is you reset the rotor tester, and then you rotate it in one direction, and what happens is the A and B poles keep going up, and when they keep going up and they find their highest number, it stores that highest number. So on this rotor here, I've got a B number of 1721, and I've got an A number of 1688. So the A pole and the B pole, there's a gap there of, what's that? That's 33, a 33 difference. Now there's no industry standard in this, from what I've been told. The numbers that I've often been reported from Trinity, I come and use it on here, and they're nothing like it. So no industry standard. So it's a little bit of, you know, whatever you're using, whatever rotors you're using, and if you've got one bit of kit, as long as you know what kind of the rotors relate to when it comes to using your Motorlizer, don't really matter what the numbers are, as long as it's giving you the decent numbers over there. So then what I do is I do it again, go back, and it's really important to do it as super slowly as you possibly can and consistently. So there I got 1722 and I got 1682. So I'm fairly comfortable that those numbers are consistent. Sometimes you can get some spurious number pop up. At that point, I'll retest it a few more times. Now with a gap of 33, that's really not too bad at all. The smaller the gap, the closer the two poles are, the more powerful the motor is going to be, effectively. The higher the torque, the less the RPM. But the more torque, the more you can load it, the more power you can create, gear it potentially higher, etc., etc. All of this stuff is, so much of it is guesswork, because everyone I speak to has a different answer on it. So I'm not saying I have the answers, but what I have shown you is that I've got some really pretty good motors of a process that I've been applying over the months and years. It's come at a cost and an expense, but again, it depends how much you want to spend and how much you want to win, right? And how much of an addict you are. That's also a massive part of this. So that's that rotor. And let's pull up another rotor. This is the second one. Reset that. I'm going to rotate it. So this one B is 1723 and A is 1707. So already looking better. Someone's just texted me that day. So Dave Spashit of the Tibbicart has come back with R fine, but he said it's a bit of a guess. So that's a guy that multiple world champion, doesn't know definitively, but his direction that he would get you to move in terms of what type of tyre to use from the JFT range, it would be R. So give that a try. So I'm going to reset it again. Take it back to the 0, reset, rotate it. So there we go, didn't fail me. So it's 1736 and 1692. So there's a bit more of a gap, isn't there? Reset that. Reset it, just make sure I do it nice and slowly. So just out the shot there. So that's 1737 again. And 1694. So it's something like this where I've got a double match up here and a double match up here. I would then start to think this was a bit of a spurious reading to start with. So at that point I would then read it one more time. (1728), 1701. So however way you mix it, it's a gap of around 20 points. So that rotor is better than the other one wherever it's gone. And at that point, you know, both of them, as far as I'm concerned, are decent rotors. I've got a couple of spare sensor boards here. Always important to have a few of those kicking around. I haven't tested those yet. I'll get a few of those. Always keep those in a safe place. Don't want to get them damaged. And that's really kind of what I do with my motors. Now, just looking at these, what I definitely want to do is just going to clean those ports up and do a bit more of that, I think. So I'm going to take that apart. Let's give that a bit of a clean. Honestly, white pitbull, man. Do not go black. Black pitbull does not work. You heard it here first. White pitbull, the way forwards. Had black all my life. Going back to white. So, let's strip this bad boy down. Make sure you keep the shims the right way around. I think we've just got another question come in. Jimmy Joe, do you find that rotors will lose the wall or overall strength after a certain amount of runs or heat cycle? Yeah, I mean, I've had a rotor last at least a year, and I race a lot. I think it's how much you abuse them, to be honest, Johnny. And it's a bit of a vicious circle, to be honest, because if the asymmetry and deviation and the overall quality of the motor isn't very good, then what you'll end up finding is that the motor will run quite hot. Then when the motor runs quite hot, you're putting more stress on that rotor, which then makes the rotor wear out. Whereas if you get a good rotor, a good stator, a good sensor board, and then you run them and they don't get as hot, all of a sudden you'll find yourself in a place where you can keep the life of your sensor board for longer, the life of your rotor for longer. So it's a bit of a vicious circle, that one, Johnny. So listen, I think you've got two directions to go with this motor business. If you're running a stock class and you want to be competitive, buy 3 motors. Buy 3 motors, take it to a fella that's got a Motorlyzer, give him 20 quid and say, can we just sit down and build a good one? Then get the other 2 motors, which are perfectly fine. They'll be good for the majority, sell them. If you've spent, let's say, $100 for 3 motors, $300, you've then built one good one and sold the other 2 for $50, half price, brand new motor for the mainstream, you've only lost $100. It's a no-brainer to me to know that you're going to go on the track and you're going to have a motor that is better than average. So that's my sort of mode of thought. It's not that you're selling a bad motor, it's just that it's not as good as the one that you've built. But if you put it up against a load of motors off the shelf, those 2 that you're selling to your pals, or the people that are not that fussed on how competitive they are, because they're not quite as good a driver as they'd like to be, you're not doing them any harm. You're giving them a touch at a brand new motor at half price. So I went slightly on from your question on the rotors, but I think it's an important factor to take in. So that's that done. Another messaging. Good stuff. Thanks for the response. Get over to the US soon and race with us on the black carpet. Loving your work. Thanks, Johnny. I've been over a few times with the New York GP down in down at Donny Lear's place.